Meg closed her eyes and tipped her head back. Rain rushed down over her face and hair, soaking her clothes and school bag. She wondered absent-mindedly if her books would be ruined, but didn't care enough to move. The first rush of exhilaration faded and left a hard knot of nothing in her chest. No heart, no soul, no feeling or emotion. Nothing. She relinquished herself to an eternity of standing there completely at the mercy of the torrential downpour. She laid one hand against the spot where her inner jacket pocket was, thinking of the note there. She didn't have to read it to remember what it said. The past never dies. Tammy Knight. Some yahoo left it under her front door, probably as a bad joke several months ago, and yet it was still getting to her. She shouldn't let it affect her so much, she chided herself. So what if someone found out that her mother had been put in a coma by some crazed boyfriend who then tried to kill Meg? It had happened years ago. She was past it. Meg sighed. She should have talked to Nicole about it, but didn't want to make a big deal out of nothing. Besides, at the time, Nicole had been busy trying to avoid getting killed by the psychotic, polluting, law-breaking vice president of Stiegel & Company. As well as her crazy, shape-shifting uncle. She didn't need to be bothered by some silly note. And Meg couldn't talk to her now anyway when Nicole was off enjoying her honeymoon with her hunk of a husband, David. It was for the best, she thought. Nicole deserved a break, and she and David were gloriously happy together. Meg was happy for Nicole, but she could use a friend to talk to right about now. Unbidden, her thoughts turned to David's friend, Mark Stevenson. She'd met him the night Nicole almost died in a building fire, and again at Nicole's wedding. He was a police officer, and not bad on the eyes either. With dark brown hair and the hint of a muscular physique, he could easily turn a few heads. The night they'd met, his hazel eyes studied her with unabashed concern, as if he really cared what happened to her. Meg forcefully pushed him from her thoughts. He was a stranger. She didn't need to run off and tell some stranger her problems. It wasn't in her nature to do such a thing. Besides, Nicole was the only person she ever confided in. There was no reason for that to change now, just because she was a little lonely and vulnerable. Meg pushed her fingers through her soaked tresses and water sloshed off her red-brown hair. Let it rain, she thought. This weather suited her mood. The wind picked up, blowing the rain in horizontal sheets of needle-like moisture. Still, she didn't move. Thunder elicited shrieks from nearby students who huddled under the covered walkways. Meg didn't even flinch. She didn't care about the potential for lightning, even though she stood ankle-deep in dirty rainwater. Somewhere in the distance, she heard the bell toll the hour inside. It was time for class. Opening her eyes, she headed to the psych building. Mara pulled her cardigan tighter and closed the balcony doors. The rain was starting to dissipate after the midday monsoon a few minutes earlier. Strange, she thought to herself. Heavy rain wasn't uncommon, but something about today's weather seemed unnatural. Her thoughts turned instantly to the dark being she'd sensed influencing Artemis, Nicole's uncle. He was powerful enough to evade her psychic probes, strong enough to be instigator of a complex set of events which stretched back at least 2 decades. She didn't have any proof, but she was certain this being had been the reason Artemis killed Nicole's parents when the girl was but 3 years old. Artemis had never been close with Richard. He'd always been jealous of his brother. But Mara never imagined things would turn so violent between them. But that was neither here nor there currently. Artemis was a pawn, as powerful as he was in his own right, as was everyone in his family. Artemis was being manipulated by someone stronger than he was. Whoever the mysterious someone was, they'd killed couriers for the council in order to aid in Artemis's escape. Mara had only shared this bit of news with Mark.